Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. So that was actually the way that I had been hosting webinars during my day job at ServiceNow. So I just wanted to open with that a little good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are tuning in the world. That's my wannabe radio show host slash wannabe podcast. Oh, wait a second. I'm a podcast host. Thank you very much. Okay. That was a fun little Monday morning intro. Actually, it's Monday at noon. But I want to get right into the topic at hand, which, if you've clicked on this episode, there's usually two reasons why you're here. First, you actually are genuinely interested in the topic. The other reason might be is that you are one of my close friends and family, and you know I'm going to ask you in a couple days what you thought of the episode. So, either way, I appreciate your presence and I appreciate your ear anytime, day or night. Okay, so the title of this podcast episode that came to me today while I was pouring my second cup of coffee, can you tell? Is three people I met during my time at Harvard. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I did say Harvard. You did read that right. That was not a typo. I did, in fact, graduate from Harvard. I know, it surprises me too. But you might be not surprised to hear that I also did play a sport at Harvard, which was part of my, whole application, because I certainly wasn't conducting brain surgery in high school or starting small nonprofits from my bedroom in 10th grade, like some of the people I went to school with, who were amazing. Just way, way ahead of me as far as realizing what life is really about. Anywho, if you're here and you're interested in the topic, I am just going to go for this and see what stories come out here. So, there are three people that I thought were super interesting during my time at Harvard that I met. All right. Well, one of these that doesn't make the list, he was really nice, Jonathan Taylor Thomas. I met him outside my very first class, my first day of freshman year. He was really nice. I just didn't really get to talk to him or anything, so I can't really comment on his life, but I remember I was sitting outside my quantitative reasoning class called Magic of Numbers, right in the beginning of the science center, where you walk in these little, rotating doors, go up, and then to the left, and there's a science center. And I sat down on this bench. I was first day of school dork with I remember this pink striped shirt and khakis. And I was like, oh my God, I'm at Harvard. What the hell am I doing here? Which I still don't know what I was doing there. But I asked him, or no, he asked, did I ask him? No, he asked me if I had a course guide, which were these printed things called printed materials that we used to use in college back in the 1400s. For all of you youngins out there. Anyway, he asked me for the course catalog. I gave it to him and I thought it was amazing because, JTT, hello. Anyway, my dog's barking. Probably won't know how to edit that out because I don't know what I'm doing, but here we go. I'll continue with the story. He was one really nice guy that I met, but yeah, he didn't make the list. Sorry, JTT. I just didn't know you. Sorry, boo. Okay. The first person, actually very interesting person that I met at Harvard, was a girl named Liz Murray. And it was my junior year, and I was living in a dorm, and I was in a group, but I got placed in a group from, what was this? This was when I had, oh shit, I'm gonna have to edit this part out. Fuck. That's okay. So, Liz Murray, cut. Let's restart here. Cut, let's restart here. Cut, let's restart here. So my junior year at Harvard, I actually transferred up to the Quad. And this was just an area which used to be Radcliffe, where the women went to school before they were let into Harvard. Boo. Anyway, I was living in the Quad, and I was connected through a bathroom to basically someone who would get placed in that room. And then we were all in a big hallway. So we all lived in houses at Harvard. Like you didn't live off campus because it was so expensive. So you'd just be in a house with like a housemaster and a dining hall, and it was very like Harry Potter, right? Um, so I did not know who I was going to be placed with, but you're in this long hallway, so you basically just share a bathroom with 2 doors, and then you're in your little suite. And so I was, putting out my little like leopard print cosmetic stuff and like being the cheesy dork that I am and like decorating my bathroom. And I noticed that nobody had moved in yet. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. Like nobody's here. I'm not like meeting anyone or their parents. But I'm like, okay. A couple days later, this girl named Liz walked in, and I was like, "Oh, hey, I'm Bree. What's up? I'm right here." Blah blah blah. And I remember noticing that she was like very shy and kind of hesitant, really like tall and thin, and kind of um, just not like had the body language of like she wasn't super interested in like having a deep chat, or just kind of more introverted. Whereas I'm kind of like, "Hi, I will meet you and you know like talk your face off." Anywho, hopefully I'll channel that into this podcast so I won't have to chat everyone's ear off. But so yeah, met her briefly, didn't really see her around much. I would see her in the dining hall, would kind of say hello. And then she would be gone for like weeks at a time. Very limited interactions in the bathroom. I would always just kind of say hello. And I remember thinking like, I wonder like how she's going to class or like what's going on. So fast forward to that spring, she was very in and out, and like I said, I would rarely see her. But when I did see her, I'd be like, "Oh, hey, how are you?" Um, get a call. I'm sitting there studying, and I'll never forget. I had my little cordless phone, and someone was like, "Hey, is this Bree Wilson?" Or no, sorry, Bree Cooley. Before I was married, and I said, "Yeah," and the person on the end of the phone ended up being a reporter from TV Guide. And they were like, "So, we just wanted to talk to you about like, living and sharing a dorm with Liz Murray." And I'm like, "Yeah, what about it?" Like, I was totally caught off guard. They're like, "Yeah, we're actually working on like a TV special with her. Um, Thora Birch is playing her, and it's called Homeless to Harvard, the Liz Murray story." And I'm like, "Uh, I yeah, wow." Um, I was so taken aback. I had no clue that she had this past, and she had actually won like this New York Times scholarship contest, like writing an essay, and she used to be homeless. Um, yeah, and I did not know that. And so she was off helping the production crew, like being on set with Thora Birch, who played her, like advising, and actually in this documentary movie. Sorry, no, it's just a kind of a movie. I don't know if it's documentary, but um, Thora Birch plays her, and she actually plays one of the cops that comes in um, during one of the scenes. So, unfortunately, she had a very rough past. Her mom was addicted to drugs, ended up getting AIDS and dying. She grew up in New York City and, didn't really let that stop her. Ended up winning a scholarship contest and got into Harvard. And our paths crossed in the dorm bathroom. And, looking back on that time, I wish I had, let's see, I was 19 or 20. I wish I had gone deeper into that conversation, or kind of probed a little bit more, but just what a fascinating person to meet. And having actually watched the movie, you just never really know what people have gone through and what adversity has like brought them to that moment in the bathroom of our dorm room, like two random people brought together, me having no idea of who she was, and maybe making assumptions. Oh, she's just off cutting class, I'm sure. I had no clue. No clue. So I thought that was amazing what she did, and fighting through that kind of adversity at such a young age is pretty inspiring. So Liz, if you hear this, maybe one day I could have you as a guest on the podcast, and we can make up for lost time. But anyway, super amazing inspirational story about overcoming adversity. The second person I met Harvard who was super interesting actually reminds me of like my childhood, and there's a little bit of a lesson in this. So hear me out. So I was in my dorm room. We were in our dining hall, and a bunch of us went to go like watch a movie in a friend's dorm room. Okay, pretty normal. Like after dinner, everything is all connected to the dining hall. So we go up and we're sitting on the couch, hanging out, and one of the roommates walks in, and we all started laughing because he had a pink sweater on and khakis, and I had a pink sweater on and khakis. So everyone was like, "Oh, twins, haha." Guess you had to be there. Anyway, he's like, "Oh, I'm just sitting down to watch my dad's show." And I'm like, "Oh." He's like, "Oh, yeah, he's an executive producer." And he was super cool about it because we were kind of like, "Oh, what are you doing?" You just come in there to sit down. And he's like, "Oh, my dad's he's an executive producer on the show." I'm like, "Oh, cool." And I remember seeing it was like a sitcom, and like the name came up and it said Henry Stern. I was like, or no, sorry, Daniel Stern. Henry is actually the guy's name. My colleague, not colleague, classmate's name. Long story short, I proceeded as soon as no, not Henry. Damn it. Daniel Stern ended up coming on the screen as one of the actors. And he was like, "Oh yeah, that's my dad." And I'm like, "Uh, your dad's the Home Alone guy?" It was just like a gut reaction. I had no filter, and he started laughing he's like, "Oh yeah." And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's like my childhood." Like, "Oh my gosh." Like so cool, right? And he was way nice about it. And he ended up being we were in the same major. He was an English major, so I would see him all the time at like sandwich shops or in class. Great guy, Henry Stern. If you're out there, um, you're awesome. But what I'm trying to say is that I kind of wish I didn't do that because I'm sure, kind of like living in the shadow of, "Oh, you're so and so's son," or "You're so and so is your dad," or da 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 da. While I'm sure that was quite common at Harvard, I'm sure it would be hard to always hear that when someone meets you, like, "Oh, you're so and so's dad, you're so and so's whatever." So it's funny just looking back on those two situations, two really interesting people, who grew up in very different ways. You have, Liz Murray, who fought homelessness and then fought her way to Harvard. And then you have Henry Stern, who grew up with a dad who was, beloved by all and all the, the voice of the Wonder Years and like, you know, the Home Alone guy in both Home Alone movies, which, oh my gosh, in elementary school, those were like core memories for me. But I wish I could have had approached both of those situations differently, like taken the time to get to know Liz more, even though she was super introverted, kind of like, I wish I dug a little deeper. And then with Henry, I wish I kind of had not said, "Oh, your dad's the Home Alone guy." Even though it was in good spirits, I'm sure, he is his own person. And that doesn't always feel great when people kind of compare you to your parents or your relative or whoever or your sibling, blah, blah, blah. All right. Now, the last person, the third person that I met at Harvard was very, very, very interesting. Was me. Ha! Threw you for a loop there. That is not actually the way it sounds that I'm so interesting. The way I actually mean it is that I met myself in that I went through so much adversity there mentally that I really kind of met myself in the mirror quite a few times. Um, and throughout that time, different forms of adversity came, being 3,000 miles from home. I was 18. It was amazing, but I had never done that before. And again, champagne problems, right? I'm at a beautiful college, and being supported by my parents, so no complaints. But for me, it was intimidating at the time. Talk about imposter syndrome. I was like, "What the hell am I doing here?" And holy shit. Thankfully, I had a softball team that helped me kind of settle in. But that's a whole nother story about how I ended up quitting halfway through my junior year, blah, blah, blah. And that's another podcast. Stay tuned for that. But I will say, I met myself there in that I went through about a million versions of myself over those 4 different years. One as a student athlete, one as someone who no longer was a student athlete, as a freshman, as a sophomore, as a junior, as a senior, as somebody who felt like such a fish out of water when I was there. I was looking around going, holy shit, this is wonderful people there, but I just did not feel like I was smart enough to be there. And, I graduated. It's still funny to me, but I worked really hard and I worked through a lot of adversity. But I will say I met myself in many different states there. Went through a lot of ups and downs, many of which were self-imposed, but just those 4 years of college were tough, I can tell you that. And thankful to my parents for sticking with me on some of those, because I definitely just had trouble finding myself and felt insecure and didn't know who I was and tried to mold into different crowds. And I remember going to a party there at the Hasty Pudding Club, and get this is hilarious. My email address was it was Cooley at FAS, like Frank, and then fas.harvard.edu, which is Cooley at Faculty of Arts and Sciences.harvard.edu. Well, I got an invite to this Hasty Pudding Club, which is like this super, lots of rich people, which I should have known, kind of club that you get invited to. And I'm like, oh my God, they want me to go to the cocktail hour? Cool. Yeah. And I went, and I remember I'm not even going to say who the person's name is because it's not very nice. But this girl came up to me and was like, "Oh, how do you know anyone?" And I'm like, "Oh, I was invited via email." And I literally didn't know anyone. And we're in this old like Harvard type, cigar smoking lounge, darling. And I'm like, "Oh, yay. Hi, I'm a dork, but why am I here? But someone invited me." And she was like, "Oh," and then I told her, "Oh, I'm, Brie Cooley," da, da, da. And she's like, "Oh my gosh. I think, you know what? You accidentally got this other girl, something Cooley. I wouldn't say her name. You got her invite. I think there was a mistake." And I was like, sweet. I knew I felt out of place because I wasn't actually invited. So that was super fun. Yeah, Google that Hasty Pudding Club. Sorry, Hasty Pudding, but they just weren't very nice to me. I mean, it's not my fault that there was a typo and they added the wrong letter, but it was like some A Cooley versus Cooley. And yeah, so anyway, that was awesome. So you can see why like moments like that would kind of make you feel like a weirdo. But many more stories to come on Harvard. But I just kind of wanted to wrap that up and say, there were super cool people there. And it was a very interesting college experience. I'll say that. But I think the most important person I met there was definitely myself. And I'm still continuing to try to meet myself. Sorry for the background noise there. Meet myself in the mirror every day and really just show compassion to myself. So no matter what adversity is coming your way this week, just meet yourself kindly in the mirror. And remember, you got this. I'm actually looking at a coaster that I had made for this dinner for launching the podcast. So I'm going to end with this. Empower yourself, listen to uplifting tunes, and take charge of your destiny. Yeah, baby. See you next time.